Rain struck Maya's skin like shards of ice. Every drop warned her that time was running out. Her lungs burned as she forced her way through the forest, stumbling over roots hidden beneath wet leaves. Branches hooked into her jacket and ripped the fabric, as though the trees themselves were trying to drag her back toward the wolves hunting her. Behind her, another howl rose above the storm. Closer. They had found her trail. The realization sent a chill through her blood, colder than the rain that had followed her for 3 relentless days. 3 days since she had trusted the wrong person. 3 days since her carefully hidden life had shattered, leaving her with nothing except the clothes she wore, and a secret powerful enough to get her killed. Thunder split the sky. Maya pressed her back against the trunk of an ancient oak and fought to quiet her breathing. Her heartbeat slammed against her ribs so violently she feared the hunters would hear it through the trees. They were skilled. Too skilled. But Maya had survived for 3 years by becoming invisible. She knew how to vanish between pack borders, how to sleep without leaving a scent, how to move through territories where exiles disappeared and were never spoken of again. Hiding was the only reason she was still alive. Lightning tore across the darkness, flooding the forest with a white flash. And that was when she saw him. A massive wolf lay collapsed beside a fallen log less than 20 feet away. His dark fur was soaked with rain and matted with blood that appeared almost black beneath the stormy sky. One hind leg bent at a sickening angle, his chest barely moved. For one breathless moment, Maya thought he was already dead. Keep running. The command came from the part of her that had kept her alive all these years. This is not your fight. Yet something about the broken creature tightened around her heart. He had been left alone, wounded beyond hope, abandoned by whoever should have protected him. Maya knew that pain. She knew what it meant to be cast away by the people who had once called you family. She knew how rejection could remain fresh inside the body, no matter how many years passed. Another howl echoed through the storm, 1/2 mile away, perhaps less. She had only minutes. Maya looked at the dying wolf again, and the wall she had built around her compassion finally cracked. "Damn it," she whispered. Then she pushed away from the tree and ran toward him. Her boots slid across the soaked ground as she dropped beside his enormous body. Up close, the damage was even worse. Deep wounds crossed his ribs. His leg had been crushed. Blood poured from cuts that should already have killed him. Then Maya caught another scent beneath the rain and blood. Metal. Silver. Her body went cold. Silver was poison to their kind. Whoever had attacked this wolf had not been hunting for food or territory. They had tried to execute him. "Who did this to you?" she murmured. Her hands hovered above his injuries. Even unconscious, he radiated a force unlike anything she had ever encountered. He was larger than any wolf she had seen, and power rolled from him like heat from an open forge. His eyelids shifted. Golden eyes opened and fixed upon hers. Fierce. Aware. Impossible. Despite the blood loss and silver poisoning, there was intelligence in that stare. Something flashed across his gaze recognition, perhaps though Maya knew she had never met him before. She would have remembered eyes like those. Trust. The word brushed through her mind so clearly that she could not tell whether it belonged to her or to him. The wolf released a low, broken whine. Maya made her choice. She placed both hands over the worst wound, closed her eyes, and opened the power she had spent 3 years hiding. Heat gathered beneath her ribs. Then it flowed through her arms and into his body. Using her gift was more dangerous than being chased. Healing left a trace of signature certain wolves could detect from miles away. If she released enough power to save him, the hunters would know exactly where she was. But allowing him to die when she could prevent it would betray everything she still believed about herself. Warmth poured from her palms. His flesh responded at once. The silver fought her, searing her hands as she drew the poison from his blood. Maya clenched her teeth and pushed deeper. Broken bone began to reconnect. Torn muscle slowly knitted together. Bleeding vessels sealed beneath her touch. The wolf's golden eyes widened. Wonder appeared there. Then the effort began dragging Maya toward darkness. Healing injuries this severe demanded nearly everything she possessed. Her strength drained into him until she could no longer feel the cold rain, the mud beneath her knees, or the pain in her hands. Voices broke through the tree line behind her. The hunters. They had arrived. Maya's body folded against the wolf's side. She had saved him. And now they would both die. The last thing she remembered was the blaze of his golden stare, and a deep voice that could not possibly have come from an animal's throat. Mine. Before the truth of that single word could reach her, consciousness vanished. When Maya returned to herself, it felt as though she were rising through deep, black water, slowly, painfully, with the strange certainty that while she had slept, the foundation of her life had shifted. The first thing she noticed was warmth, not the desperate heat she created while healing, but a steady comfort that seeped into her bones and tempted her to remain still forever. The second thing she noticed was the scent surrounding her: pine, cedar, and something wild, masculine, and powerful enough to quicken her pulse before she could stop it. Her eyes opened. She was lying on a vast bed covered in heavy furs. Stone walls rose around her, illuminated by a fire burning inside a hearth large enough for a man to stand in. The room resembled a chamber from an ancient northern castle. None of it made sense. Her final memory was the storm, the approaching hunters, and a dying wolf with golden eyes. "You're awake." The voice came from the shadows near the window. Deep, controlled, commanding enough to make every instinct in Maya's body sharpen at once. She surged upright, then immediately regretted it. The room spun, and pain pulsed behind her eyes. Her healing power always left her weak, sometimes for days, but this exhaustion felt deeper. It was as though she had poured more than energy into the wounded wolf, as though she had given him part of herself. A figure stepped into the firelight. Maya forgot how to breathe. He stood well over 6 feet tall, his shoulders stretching the fabric of a simple black shirt. Dark hair fell in loose waves to his collar. His movements held the smooth restraint of a predator that knew it had nothing to fear. Then he faced her fully. Golden eyes met hers. The same eyes. The wolf. Now they belonged to a man whose presence occupied the chamber like a physical force. Beautiful was too gentle a word for him. He possessed the lethal beauty of winter mountains and sharpened steel magnificent precisely because danger lived beneath every line of his body. And there was something worse. Looking at him felt familiar, as though someone had reached into Maya's most private dreams and shaped a man from everything she had never dared desire. "Who are you?" Her voice emerged rough. She swallowed and tried again. "Where am I?" One corner of his mouth lifted. It might have been a smile if any warmth had touched it. Instead, it looked like a wolf revealing its teeth. "You saved my life, little healer." His words were quiet, but authority pulsed beneath them. "Did you believe I would not discover who you were?" I slid through Maya's veins. He knew. Somehow, this stranger knew about her gift. "I don't know what you're talking about," she lied. She pushed herself toward the edge of the bed. She needed to leave before his interest turned into a death sentence. He crossed the room faster than should have been possible. One moment he stood beside the window. The next, his hand rested on her shoulder. He did not grip her roughly. He did not need to. The steady pressure made it clear that leaving was not an available choice. "Maya Karen," he said, 23 years old, exiled from the Silver Moon Pack 3 years ago for reasons the pack refused to reveal publicly. His tone remained almost conversational. "You have lived beyond recognized territory ever since. You move constantly. You never remain long enough to build a home or leave roots behind. Each sentence struck like a blow. Nobody was supposed to know her true name. Nobody was supposed to connect her to Silver Moon. She had spent 3 years erasing herself, becoming one more nameless exile slipping through the empty spaces between territories. But you possess a gift, he continued, a gift that saved me after silver poisoning should have ended my life. How do you know any of that? Maya whispered. She hated the weakness in her voice. Because I have been searching for you. The admission settled between them like a weapon placed on a table. Maya studied his face, desperate to find deception. Instead, she found certainty, and something beneath it that caused a dangerous flutter in her stomach. Searching for me? She asked. Why? For a long moment he said nothing. His golden gaze moved across her features with such intensity that Maya felt as though he were seeing beneath her skin, through every defense, into the damaged places she had hidden even from herself. When he finally spoke, his voice dropped almost to a whisper. 3 years ago, a healer carrying silver flame in her blood disappeared from the Silver Moon pack. Maya stopped breathing. On that same night, every oracle in the Northern Territories received the same vision. They saw a woman with light in her hands and fire in her heart, a woman standing at the center of a prophecy capable of changing everything. That's impossible, Maya said quickly. I'm no one. I'm not special. I'm only... You're mine. The words cut through her protest. He spoke them with such complete certainty that reality itself seemed to bend around the claim. Something deep inside Maya answered. Recognition. The response frightened her more than any threat could have done. I belong to no one. Even to her own ears, the denial sounded hollow. His hand moved from her shoulder to her face. His palm cupped her cheek, and his thumb brushed her cheekbone with a gentleness that stole the strength from her anger. You touched wounds that should have burned the flesh from your hands, he said. You pulled silver from my blood when the axe should have killed us both. His gaze held hers. Do you understand what that makes you, little healer? Maya could not answer. She could barely think through the warmth of his touch and the way he looked at her, as though she were precious, dangerous, and long awaited. It makes you the mate of the Alpha King. The world tilted. There was only one Alpha King in the Northern Territories. Only one wolf powerful enough to claim the title and defend it against every challenger. Cale Blackthorn, the most feared leader their people had known in centuries. Maya stared into the golden eyes of the man before her and felt the hidden life she had constructed turn to ash. No, she breathed. That cannot be true. Yet the truth was already settling into her bones like molten gold. Cale Blackthorn smiled. This time, warmth reached his eyes, transforming his face from beautiful into something devastating. Hello, mate, he said. We have a great deal to discuss. Maya tore herself away from his touch as if it had burned her. She wrapped both arms around her body and backed toward the far wall while memories she had buried for 3 years broke free with brutal clarity. You don't understand, she whispered. I am not a savior from some prophecy. Her voice trembled. I am the reason 16 wolves died. I am the reason a bloodline was destroyed. Your oracles were wrong. Cale remained where he stood, but his gaze followed every movement she made. Tell me what happened, Maya. The way he spoke her name nearly undid her. He said it carefully, almost reverently, as though it were something fragile he refused to break. For 3 years, nobody had spoken her real name without fear, accusation, or disgust. Hearing it spoken with gentleness was more painful than hatred. You want to know? Maya laughed bitterly. You want to hear why the great Alpha King's supposed mate is nothing but a disaster waiting to happen? She turned toward him. Fine, but do not say I failed to warn you. The past rose around her like dark water. She had been 20 then, young enough to believe love could overcome anything, and naive enough to think being different made her extraordinary instead of dangerous. The Silver Moon Pack had always feared her healing ability, but they tolerated it because she remained careful. She treated only small injuries. She released only enough energy to help. She never allowed anyone to witness the full extent of her power. Not until Fessus Silver Moon, the Alpha's youngest son, the beloved golden boy of the pack, and the wolf Maya had loved with everything she possessed. A hunting party had carried him home with his chest torn open and silver poison flooding his blood. The pack healers had already surrendered hope. Maya had not hesitated. She had poured every fragment of her power into him, allowing it to run unchecked for the first time in her life. That was when the silver flame appeared. "My gift is not ordinary healing," Maya said, staring through the window at the dark forest. "Most healers work through life energy. The light is green, warm, and safe." Her hands tightened around her arms. "Mine burns silver." She turned toward Cale, expecting revulsion. He only listened. Silver flame can purge almost any poison. It can close wounds that should be fatal. It can pull someone back from the edge of death. Maya's voice lowered. "But it doesn't only repair what is broken. It transforms. It changes the body it touches, makes it stronger, sharper, more than it was before. When Fessus awakened, he was not the same wolf who had been carried into the healing chamber. He moved faster. His strength doubled. His senses became more powerful than those of any wolf in Silver Moon history. For 3 days, the packs celebrated him as a miracle, the Alpha's son saved and enhanced by the extraordinary gift of the woman he loved. Then the hunger began. "Silver flame does more than heal," Maya whispered. Tears gathered in eyes she had believed were empty forever. "It awakens things, ancient things, things that were buried for a reason." Fessus began changing in ways that had nothing to do with improved strength. His wolf grew violently territorial. Rage consumed him without warning. He remained trapped in animal form for hours and could no longer control the shift. When he hunted, it was not for hunger. He hunted because he enjoyed the kill. Then he disappeared for 2 days. Search parties finally found him in a clearing surrounded by 16 bodies from a neighbouring pack. Every wolf had been torn apart with horrifying precision. Not for defence, not for survival, for sport. Fessus had looked at Maya with eyes glowing silver instead of their familiar warm brown, and, in that moment, she had known. She had created a monster. The flame awakened a dormant bloodline, Maya said, her voice cracking. A primal line older than the packs. Creatures that existed when our kind were still more beast than human. Something shifted in Cale's expression. Not fear. Understanding. Almost relief. Fessus became a direwolf, Maya continued, one of the creatures from the oldest legends. The packs attempted to restrain him. They tried to speak to the person he had once been. But the creature did not listen. It hunted. It killed. And it was nearly impossible to stop. Both packs joined forces. They tracked him for 3 days. Even then, Fessus nearly escaped. He almost killed Maya's father before a silver bullet finally pierced his heart. When it ended, the council made its decision, Maya said. Her hands shook as she wiped tears from her cheeks. They could not execute me because I had not intended any harm, but they would not allow me to remain. She heard Alpha Silver Moon's voice as clearly as if she still stood before the council. "You are banished from this territory and every allied land. If you use the cursed gift again, if you awaken another monster, we will hunt you down and end your life ourselves." Maya had looked around the chamber at wolves who had known her since childhood. Family, friends, the people she had trusted. Every face reflected the same thing. Fear. Disgust. The boy you loved is dead because of you. The Alpha had continued. 16 innocent wolves are dead because of you. Remember that. Maya, Karen. Remember it whenever you are tempted to play healer again. The memory faded. Maya looked at Cale and waited for him to recoil. She expected him to summon guards or order the dangerous exile removed from his land. Instead, he came closer. You believe that story will make me reject you? He asked quietly. Shouldn't it? Her voice barely carried. I am cursed. Cale. Everyone I try to save becomes twisted. Everything I touch eventually turns to ash. To Maya's shock, he smiled. Not the sharp smile of a predator. Something warm. Something gentle. Maya, he said, reaching for her hands, do you know which bloodline runs through me? She shook her head. Direwolf. Her body went still. I am what Fessus became, Cale continued. But I was born this way. I have spent my entire life learning to govern that nature to turn it toward protection instead of destruction. Maya stared at him. And only one force can awaken a dormant direwolf bloodline. His fingers tightened around hers. The touch of a silver flame healer. That's impossible. You did not create a monster that night, Cale said. You awakened something already living inside him. Something that needed guidance, discipline, and understanding. His voice softened. Fessus lost himself because he did not know what he was becoming. Cale lifted her hands and pressed his lips to her knuckles. You did not curse him, little healer. You revealed his true nature. Maya could not move, and had someone been there to help him understand it, Cale said, perhaps those 16 wolves would still be alive. The words entered her like forgiveness, like absolution she had never believed she deserved. For the first time in 3 years. Maya drew a full breath. 3 hours later, Maya followed Cale into a forest that seemed older than memory. The trees were immense. Ancient pines and oaks climbed so high that their crowns vanished into the mist. Moss draped every trunk and stone in layers of green, and a low current of power moved through the air, raising the fine hairs along Maya's skin. Where are we going? She asked. She tried to hide her breathlessness. Cale moved through the wilderness as though the land recognized him. He never slipped, never hesitated. Maya had to quicken her pace to remain beside his long strides. To a place you need to see, he answered without turning. A place that will help you understand what you truly are. Maya almost laughed. She understood herself perfectly. She was an exile carrying a dangerous gift, a healer whose attempt to save one life had ended 16 others. But the deeper they went, the more the forest silenced her objections. It felt awake, aware, as though unseen eyes followed her through the mist, measuring her worth before allowing her to approach whatever secret waited at its heart. Soon, Maya began noticing things that defied reason. Symbols had been carved into the bark of the oldest trees. Whenever she looked away, the shapes seemed to shift. Stones stood in patterns that made her eyes ache if she studied them too long. And beneath everything, that steady humming answered something hidden inside her chest. Cale. Maya stopped. He turned. In the scattered forest light, his golden eyes appeared to glow. What is this place? The heart of the wilds, he said. The oldest sacred ground in the Northern Territories. His gaze moved over the surrounding trees. Some believe the first wolves learned to pass between human and animal form here. Others say the boundary separating our world from the spirit realm becomes thin in this forest. And you brought me here because... Cale held out his hand. Trust me. The word struck an old wound. Fessus had asked for her trust the night before she healed him. The night before everything changed. Maya stared at Cale's open palm. Every lesson carved into her by exile told her to refuse. Yet when she met his golden eyes, she felt something she had believed was gone forever. Hope. Perhaps it was foolish, Perhaps she was walking willingly toward another disaster. Still, she placed her hand in his. The moment their skin touched, the forest transformed. The low hum became a vast symphony, vibrating through her bones like the oldest song in existence. The symbols carved into the trees erupted in silver light, the exact shade of her healing flame. Magic thickened the air until Maya's knees weakened beneath its weight. "Do you feel it?" Cale asked. Wonder softened his voice. Maya could only nod. She felt everything. The pulse of roots deep beneath the soil, the breath of leaves high above them, whispers from spirits that had crossed beyond flesh centuries ago, the pressure of prophecies written in starlight and sealed in blood. Power moved through her like a river of molten silver, and for the first time it did not feel cursed. It felt like home. Cale guided her deeper into the sacred forest until they entered a circular clearing. At its center stood a massive stone altar. Symbols covered every surface, wolf heads woven through flames, moons shone in every phase, and ancient marks Maya somehow understood despite never having seen them. Then she noticed the carving at the center. Her heart stopped. A silver wolf stood within a crown of fire, its eyes blazing with inner light. "The mark of the silver flame," Cale said. He followed her stare. According to legend, it appears upon the one chosen to bridge the distance between wolf and spirit, between the ancient world and the new. Maya's hand moved to her left shoulder. A birthmark had rested there since infancy. She had hidden it for most of her life because its shape looked disturbingly similar to— "Show me," Cale said gently. Her fingers trembled as she pulled the collar of her shirt aside. In the sacred glow, the mark was no longer an ordinary stain upon her skin. Silver fire pulsed through it. The shape was identical to the image carved into the altar. "No." Maya backed away. "No, this is madness. I am not chosen. I am only a woman who made a terrible mistake." The altar exploded with light. Every symbol flared alive. Voices filled the clearing, speaking in a language older than human memory. Yet Maya understood every word. When silver flame burns bright, and direwolf walks in flesh, the marked one shall rise, to heal what once was torn. She who bridges wolf and spirit, she who speaks through light, shall stand between the worlds. When shadow claims the night, the voices vanished. Silence settled so completely that Maya could hear the thunder of her own heart. "The prophecy of the silver flame," Cale said. "The first oracle spoke it more than 2,000 years ago. Every generation since, shamans and spiritual leaders have waited for the one who would fulfill it." Maya stirred from the altar to the mark on her shoulder, then to Cale's face. Reverence filled his expression. "This cannot be real," she whispered. "Prophecies are stories. People invent them because they cannot accept that life is random." "Athhay." Cale stepped closer, his warmth anchoring her within the storm of ancient magic. 3 nights ago, at the exact moment you healed me, every oracle in 5 territories witnessed the same vision. They saw silver flame swallowing shadow. They saw a woman standing at the center of a great awakening. His gaze held hers. They saw you. The clearing began to pulse again. Something stirred inside Maya, not merely healing power, but a force wider than her body, as though destiny itself had begun unfolding beneath her skin. "I don't want this," she said. "I know." Cale's answer carried no judgment. "But destiny has never depended upon desire. The question is not whether you feel prepared to become what the prophecy describes." His voice lowered. "The question is whether you are brave enough to stop running from it." The forest went silent. No birds. No insects. No wind moving through the leaves. The silence of prey sensing a predator. Then howls rolled through the trees. Maya's blood froze. She knew those voices. They belonged to the same hunters who had pursued her through the storm 3 nights before. They found us. She breathed. Kale's face hardened. For an instant, Maya saw the direwolf beneath his human shape ancient, controlled, and lethal. Not hers, he corrected. You. Figures emerged between the trees. Wolves in human form moved toward the clearing, carrying silver weapons. Hatred twisted their faces. At their head walked a man Maya recognized before the sacred light revealed him fully. Alpha Silver Moon. Her former leader. The man who had banished her and sworn to kill her if she ever used her gift again. Maya Karen. His voice thundered through the grove. You were warned. You were told exactly what would happen if you played healer again. He entered the clearing. Did you think we would not sense the awakening? Did you believe we would fail to feel the shock of power when you broke our laws? Maya's hands began trembling. At least 20 warriors followed him. Each carried silver. Each had come prepared to end her life. There was no path of escape. Then Kale's hand closed around hers. Strength passed through the contact. You are not alone this time, he murmured, low enough that only she could hear. And you are no longer the frightened girl who made one mistake. The altar pulsed behind them. You are the silver flame. His fingers tightened. It is time to stop hiding from yourself. The confrontation erupted before Maya could answer. Alpha Silver Moon strode into the sacred clearing with the confidence of a leader who had never accepted defeat. Silver streaked his hair, reflecting the altar's mystical glow. His 20 warriors spread behind him in a precise hunting formation, every blessed blade and rifle aimed toward Maya and Kale. 3 years, the Alpha said. Authority weighed down each word. For 3 years, we have tracked the disturbances left by your cursed power. Whenever someone reported an impossible healing or a recovery no healer could explain, we investigated. His stare burned into Maya. We were always one step behind the monster who destroyed my son. Kale tensed beside her. Power gathered beneath his skin like heat trapped inside iron. Then Alpha Silver Moon looked at him. Did you think we would not feel it when you awakened another direwolf? Disgust sharpened his face. How many more monsters will you create before we end you permanently? She created nothing. Kale's voice was so quiet that the entire clearing seemed to lean toward it. I was born a direwolf, old man. Your ignorance does not alter the truth. Alpha Silver Moon laughed. The sound held no humor. Born direwolf. Impossible. Those bloodlines vanished centuries ago. He raised his weapon slightly. What stands before me is another abomination, another weapon she has made to unleash upon innocent packs. The warriors tightened the circle. Maya understood then. They had not come to arrest her. They had come to execute them both. You are wrong, she said. Her voice shook, but she forced it into the open. You never understood what happened that night. Fessus. Do not speak his name. Alpha Silver Moon's roar shook the grove. Several warriors flinched at the agony inside it. You murdered my son as surely as if you fired the silver bullet yourself. You changed him into a creature that slaughtered innocents for pleasure. His face twisted. And now you have done it again. The altar brightened behind Maya, answering the violence rising in the clearing. Symbols burned across its surface. The living force of the prophecy pressed against her mind. Alpha Silver Moon lifted one hand. Every warrior raised a weapon in perfect unison. By the laws of the Northern Territories, and by the blood debt owed to 16 innocent souls, I sentence you to death, Maya Karen. His gaze shifted toward Kale. Your mate will die beside you for hiding a known fugitive and conspiring to spread the direwolf curse. Wait. Maya moved in front of Kale. He has no part in this. Release him, and I will go with you willingly. No. Kale caught her wrist. His grip remained gentle, yet there was no breaking it. That will not happen. Alpha Silvermoon smiled with the coldness of winter frost. How noble! The monster protects her latest victim. He looked at Kale. Tell me, King, do you even understand what you have become? Can you feel the hunger yet? The need to hunt? The desire to tear apart anything weaker than yourself? Kale went completely still. Darkness shifted beneath his calm exterior. For one terrible instant, Maya wondered whether her former alpha was right. Was Hale only another Fessus waiting to lose control? I know exactly what I am, Kale said. His voice carried a second vibration beneath the first, making the air tremble. I am the Dire-Wolf King, a descent from bloodlines that ruled while your ancestors were still learning to stand upright. Power gathered around him. I am the shadow that holds true monsters at bay. His eyes blazed gold. And I am her mate. Power burst from him in a violent wave. His body began to change. Bones lengthened and reformed. Muscle expanded beneath his skin. His human shape gave way to something larger and older until an enormous black wolf stood where the Alpha King had been. This was not the mindless creature Fessus had become. This was ancient power held beneath perfect control. Wisdom lived within the golden eyes. Authority rolled from his body with such force that every wolf in the clearing, even Alpha Silvermoon, fought the instinct to lower their heads and expose their throats. Impossible, one warrior whispered. The old bloodlines are gone, another said. Alpha Silvermoon recovered first. He raised a rifle blessed with silver. Only the slight tremor in his hands betrayed him. It does not matter what title you give yourself. Dire-Wolf, King, Monster. His fingers settled on the trigger. You all die the same. The rifle cracked. Maya screamed. Silver fire erupted from her hands before thought could reach her body. A barrier of healing light formed between Kale and the bullet. The silver projectile struck the flame and broke apart into harmless sparks. Pain exploded through Maya's skull. The sacred ground magnified her untrained power and threw part of it back through her body. Her knees buckled. Kale's massive wolf pressed against her side, holding her upright. Stand down, Silvermoon. Another voice cut across the chaos. Maya's heart sank. Elder Fessus stepped into the grove, the trusted advisor who had pronounced her banishment 3 years earlier. 12 additional warriors surrounded him, doubling the force arrayed against her. This ground has suffered enough defilement through her presence, the elder declared. Then his eyes moved toward the altar. But look around you, Alpha. See what her power is doing. Maya followed his gaze and gasped. The altar had become a pillar of silver light. Fire shone from the ancient carvings. Trees surrounding the clearing glowed from within, and the soil vibrated beneath their feet. She is awakening the old magic, Elder Fessus said. Magic sealed away for good reason. If we do not stop her, she may tear open reality itself. You are wrong, Maya said. But she could feel the unstable force building. The prophecy was more than words carved into stone. It was a living spell, and her presence had begun to activate it whether she wished to or not. Look at her mark. Elder Fessus pointed toward Maya's exposed shoulder, where the birthmark blazed like a brand. The cursed one has awakened, the destroyer named in the old warnings. She will break the wall between worlds and release chaos. That is not the prophecy, Kale said as his body began returning to human form. Alpha Silvermoon cut him off. I do not care which prophecy is true. Grief twisted his voice into a snarl. My son is dead. 16 wolves are dead. She is the reason. He raised the rifle again. This ends now. Before he could fire, darkness erupted from the forest. Creatures poured between the trees. They resembled wolves formed from living shadow, their eyes glowing like burning coals. They moved faster than any natural animal, and their howls carried the sound of nightmares given flesh. "Shadow walkers," Elder Fessus whispered. Terror drained the colour from his face. "The barriers are already weakening." The Silver Moon warriors broke formation and turned their weapons toward the new enemy. Silver bullets passed through the creatures without resistance. Only Cale remained steady. His dial form stood between Maya and the darkness, unshaken by the invasion. In the centre of the chaos, the prophecy surged through Maya. She was a bridge between worlds. But what if every accusation was true? What if her destiny was not to heal, but to destroy? Choose. An ancient voice spoke inside her mind. Save them all, or watch everything burn. Maya looked at Cale, at the terrified warriors who had come to kill her, at the shadow creatures closing from every direction. Then she shut her eyes and reached for a power that could become either salvation or damnation. Silver flame exploded across the sacred grove. It did not burn flesh. It burned darkness. The shadow walkers screamed as light tore through their bodies. Maya felt the weakening seam between worlds beneath the clearing and instinctively forced her power into the wound. The rift began to close. She poured herself into it until the final shadow creature vanished, and the broken barrier sealed beneath a web of silver light. Then the power left her. Maya collapsed. Cale caught her before she struck the ground. They escaped only moments before more Silver Moon reinforcements reached the grove. The hidden cavern felt like another world. Cale had carried Maya deep into the mountains bordering his territory, far beyond the paths used by ordinary wolves. When she finally regained consciousness, firelight moved across walls veined with silver and quartz, turning the stone into living crystal. A natural spring steamed at the rear of the cave. Warm water bubbled between smooth rocks, filling the air with the scent of minerals and old magic. The place was beautiful, peaceful, completely unlike the turmoil inside Maya. "How long have you known about this cave?" she asked. She lowered herself onto the furs Cale had arranged beside the fire. Every part of her body ached from the power she had released in the grove. "Since childhood," Cale replied. He had returned to human form hours earlier, yet Maya could still sense the wolf beneath his skin, patient, watchful, always ready to place itself between her and danger. "When the burden of being heir to an ancient bloodline became too much, I came here to disappear." He tended the fire with practiced movements. Something about him had changed. The authority he carried like royal armor had cracked open, revealing brief glimpses of the man beneath the crown. "What was it like?" Maya asked. "Growing up knowing what you were." Cale remained quiet long enough that she thought he would refuse to answer. "Lonely," he said at last. One word. Years of pain inside it. "Direwolves do not belong naturally inside ordinary packs. We are too dominant, too powerful. Other wolves either fear us or challenge us. There is rarely anything between." He sat beside her, close enough that warmth passed from his body to hers, yet he did not touch her. Always controlled, always holding part of himself back. "The elders spent my childhood teaching me restraint," he continued, "how to chain the hunger, how to master the instinct to kill, how to lead through negotiation rather than force." He stared into the flames. "They feared I would become one of the direwolves from the legends, a mindless beast ruling through terror and slaughter." Maya studied the tension in his jaw and the weight carried in his shoulders. "Is that why you never chose a mate?" she asked. "Because you were afraid you might hurt her?" "No." Cale turned toward her. The intensity of his golden stare stole Maya's breath. "I never chose another mate because I was waiting for you." "Cale, I have known since I was 16. He raised one hand and traced the line of her cheek with devastating tenderness. "The night I first completed the direwolf shift, I saw a vision. silver fire dancing through darkness, healing hands capable of touching my soul without being burned. His thumb moved lightly across her skin. A woman with eyes like storm clouds. A woman who would look at me and see more than a monster. Maya's heart stumbled. That cannot be possible. Direwolves remain connected to the old magic in ways ordinary wolves are not, Hale said. Sometimes we dream truth. We see fragments of destiny written in shadow and stars. His thumb brushed her lips. Maya shivered. I have searched for you for more than 10 years, he said. I followed every rumor. I investigated every healer whose gift appeared unusual. Then why didn't you find me sooner? Pain passed across his expression. After Fessus died, you buried yourself. You hid your light so completely that even I could barely sense it. His voice lowered. It was not until you healed me in the forest, until you poured your essence directly into my body, that I could finally find you. The confession stretched between them like a bridge neither knew how to cross. Tears pressed behind Maya's eyes. I am still the woman who destroyed Fessus, she whispered. I am still dangerous. Still cursed. You are not cursed. Fierceness entered Cale's voice. He framed her face between both hands, yet his touch remained infinitely careful. You are magnificent. Maya stared at him. Do you understand what you accomplished in the grove? You did not simply drive away shadow walkers. You sealed a dimensional rupture that could have consumed half the territory. His golden eyes burned. That is not the power of a curse. It is a blessing so ancient and pure that frightened people no longer recognize it. But what if they are right? Her voice broke. What if the prophecy names a destroyer? What if saving Fessus was only the beginning? What if I'm the one destined to tear apart the wall between worlds? Cale did not answer with words. He leaned forward until his forehead rested against hers. The simple contact sent warmth through Maya's entire body. For one precious moment, the fear that had lived inside her for 3 years became quiet. May I show you something? He asked. Maya nodded. Hale took her hands and placed both palms against his chest, directly above his heart. Feel. At first, she sensed only the warmth of his skin and the steady rhythm beneath it. Then something deeper touched her. Maya gasped. Cale's wolf consciousness brushed against hers ancient, wild, and perfectly controlled. Through the bond, memories opened. She saw a lonely child shifting in secret, endless years of rigid discipline, a young heir learning to suppress every instinct natural to his blood, the crushing responsibility of a crown handed down through generations of direwolf kings. Beneath all of it lived a loneliness as deep as her own. Then Maya saw herself through his eyes. There was no disgust, no fear. He looked at her with wonder, with reverence, with a love so complete that it left her unable to breathe. You see my darkness, Cale murmured against her hair, the creature beneath my skin, the hunger I master each day, the violence even I fear I may be capable of. His arms tightened slightly. And you are not afraid. Should I be? Maya whispered. Everyone else is. The honesty in his voice was raw. Even members of my own council sometimes watch me, as though I'm a weapon waiting to explode. He pulled back and met her eyes. But you touched my soul when you healed me. You know exactly what I am. His voice softened. And you are still here. Something inside Maya shifted. A wall built from exile, grief, and rejection began to crumble. I see you, Cale said. All of you. His thumb brushed away a tear. The healer, the exile, the woman carrying silver flame in her bones. Your darkness and your light, your power and your pain. His gaze did not waver. And I am not leaving. Before courage abandoned her, Maya closed the distance between them and pressed her lips to his. The kiss began softly, tentative, as though neither believed the moment could survive if they moved too quickly. Then Cale's arms came around her, and Maya melted into his warmth. For one breath, she was not an exile. She was not cursed. She was wanted. When they finally separated, both of them breathing unevenly, Maya kept her forehead against his. "I'm afraid," she admitted. "What if I hurt you? What if I cannot control the flame?" "Then we learn together," Cale said. "That is what mates do." The words sent a tremor through her. "Is that what we are?" she asked. "Mates." His smile was gentle and ruinous. "That choice belongs to you." Then his expression became serious. "But whatever happens tomorrow, whatever the prophecies demand or the councils decide, remember this." "What?" "You are not alone anymore." His hand closed around hers. "Whatever comes, we face it together." For the first time in 3 years, Maya believed there might be a tomorrow worth reaching. She fell asleep beside him with that belief warming her heart, and awoke to the sound of voices destroying it. Lo, urgent speech carried through the cave. Morning light entered through the mouth of the cavern, turning the walls gold and amber. Cale sat with his back toward her near the entrance, his body outlined against the dawn. At first, Maya's heart warmed at the sight. Her mate. Her shelter in a world that had spent years trying to break her. Then she understood what he was saying. "I told you, the binding is almost complete," Cale said. "She trusts me now." Maya's breath stopped. One more night, perhaps 2, and she will be completely under the mate bond's influence. Mate bond influence. The phrase entered her body like poison. A woman answered from outside the cave. Her cultured accent belonged to the Northern High Council. "And you are certain she will not detect the manipulation?" "Direwolf bonds differ from ordinary mate bonds," Cale replied. His voice was clinical now. "Cold, unrecognizable. They are designed to produce total submission in the partner. Once the connection is fully established, she will be unable to refuse any order I give. A silver flame will become mind direct." The words struck Maya one after another. She pressed a hand over her mouth to silence the cry rising in her throat. Her entire body began to shake. "Excellent," the woman said. "The council feared your emotional involvement might interfere with the mission. Some wondered whether you were developing genuine feelings for the target." Cale laughed. The sound carried none of the warmth Maya had heard the previous night. "Feelings for a creature destined to tear holes in reality." "Please, Councillor Thorne. She's a weapon, a dangerous one that must be leashed before she destroys everything we have built. Target. Creature. Weapon." Each word cut deeper than the one before. Maya had been a fool. A starving, lonely fool who had allowed herself to believe someone could love her for who she was rather than what her power could provide. "The reports from the sacred grove are disturbing," Councillor Thorne continued. "Witnesses claim she banished an entire group of shadow walkers with one gesture. That strength will serve the Northern Territories once she is properly bound," Cale said. "Imagine having such power under our command. We could crush the Eastern Rebellion within days and secure the southern borders permanently." Maya's hand rose to her shoulder. Some time during the night, a mark had appeared there, a black wolf intertwined with silver fire. She had awakened believing it was a sign of destiny, a sign that love had finally found her after years of abandonment. Now she understood. It was not a promise. It was a collar. "And what of Silver Moon?" Councillor Thorne asked. "The Alpha still demands her death." "Let him try." Deadly confidence entered Cale's voice. "Once the bond is complete, she will stand under the protection of the direwolf crown. Any attack upon her will be an attack upon me." He paused. "More importantly, she will be too thoroughly controlled to endanger anyone again." Bile rose in Maya's throat. He discussed the destruction of her will as though negotiating territory. "And if she resists?" the councillor asked. "If she realizes, What is happening? She will not. Cale rose. Through the cave opening, Maya saw the edge of his profile, the same face that had watched her with such tenderness only hours earlier. Now it held nothing but calculation. Silver flame healers are instinctively drawn to direwolves, he said. They cannot resist the need to heal our darkness. I have merely encouraged that instinct while constructing the psychic pathways required for control. Encouraged that instinct. Every soft touch, every confession, every moment she had mistaken for truth, all of it had been designed to trap her more completely than iron ever could. Our researchers are fascinated, Councillor Thorne said. A direwolf with permanent access to silver flame could theoretically live forever. Greater healing, greater strength, greater power in every respect. A hint of satisfaction entered the woman's voice. You are not only securing a weapon, your majesty. You may be securing your own immortality. Tears blurred Maya's sight. Of course. It was not enough to command her gift. He intended to consume it. The possibility has occurred to me, Cale replied, though breaking has required more effort than expected. Silver flame healers appear naturally resistant to psychic control. His tone darkened. I was forced to use a more intimate method than I initially planned. The word intimate turned Maya's skin cold. Every kiss, every moment his body had sheltered hers. Every connection that had felt sacred. Calculated. Your sacrifice for the greater good will be remembered, Councillor Thorne said dryly. Some council members are curious whether you will retain her as a consort after the binding is complete. Proximity to silver flame may become rather addictive. Perhaps, Cale said. Although once the process is complete, I doubt what remains of her personality will be interesting. He spoke casually. The binding usually burns away everything that makes the subject herself. She will become an obedient vessel for silver flame and nothing more. Maya bit the inside of her fist until blood entered her mouth. Pain was the only thing keeping her from screaming. Nothing more. That was all she had ever been to him. All she would ever be to anyone. The council will be satisfied, Councillor Thorne said. When should we expect? Their voices faded as they moved farther from the cavern. Maya had already heard enough. She lay beneath the growing morning light, staring at the crystal ceiling while everything she had started to believe collapsed around her. Her worth. Love. Belonging. The mate mark burned against her shoulder. Something foreign pressed at the edges of her mind, attempting to move deeper. Cale's influence. How long had he been inside her thoughts? How much of what she felt for him belonged to her? How much had he planted there? Trust me, he had said. You are not alone any more. Beautiful lies. Perfect lies. Lies crafted to destroy her from within. Maya closed her eyes and reached beneath the grief, beneath the betrayal, beneath the part of her that wanted to fold in upon itself and disappear rather than survive one more rejection. At the centre of her being, silver flame waited. It had always belonged to her. Only her. If Cale desired a weapon, she would show him one. But she would never become the obedient instrument he expected. Maya Karen Exile, healer, destroyer was finished being anyone's victim. When Cale returned an hour later, he wore the same carefully arranged concern that had deceived her before. Maya waited beside the fire with a smile that never reached her eyes. "Good morning," she said softly. "We need to talk." Cale entered the cavern with that perfect expression of concern. Maya almost admired the performance. Had she not heard him discussing the destruction of her mind only an hour earlier, she might have believed the worry in his golden eyes. "You are awake early," he said. He settled beside her with practiced ease and reached to smooth her hair. Maya allowed the touch, though her skin crawled beneath his fingers. "How do you feel?" he asked. "You used too much power yesterday." "I feel fine." Her voice remained calm despite the rage building behind her ribs. "Actually, I wanted to thank you." Hale's brows lifted. "For what?" "For finally showing me who I am." Maya turned fully toward him. She saw the exact instant he realized something was wrong. His hand stopped against her hair. The predatory awareness that made him dangerous sharpened at once. "Maya, did you know silver flame healers hear more clearly when emotion heightens our senses?" She rose and walked toward the cave entrance, the place where he had spoken with Councillor Thorne. "Heartbreak is especially effective." Cale said nothing. "It is remarkable what a woman can hear when someone is planning her complete psychological destruction just outside the place where she slept." The mask fell. The gentlemate vanished. The wounded king who had entrusted her with his loneliness disappeared. In his place stood a cold, calculating creature beautiful in the way poison was beautiful. "I see," Cale said. He rose with slow, predatory grace. "And I believe I had more time to finish the bond before you understood. Before I understood that you intended to make me mindless." Maya's voice remained dangerously quiet. "Before I realized every touch, every kiss, every moment of supposed connection was only another thread wrapped around my mind." Cale tilted his head and studied her as though she were an experiment behaving unexpectedly. "You were angrier than anticipated. The early stages of the bond should have made you more compliant, more capable of accepting necessity. Your first mistake was believing I would be easy to break." Silver light flickered around Maya's fingers. "You assumed that because I had already been rejected, because I had lived alone and starved for kindness, I would cling to any affection offered to me." The flame grew brighter. "Even affection designed to enslave me. It was not entirely false," Cale said. For one moment, something real entered his eyes. "You are extraordinary. Under different circumstances, you would still be a liar who turns people into tools." Silver fire climbed Maya's arms and cast shifting shadows over the crystalline walls. "The only difference is that perhaps you would have felt a little guilt." Heat filled the cave. The mark on her shoulder burned. She felt the psychic bond pressing deeper, whispering that she was being unreasonable. "Calm down. Trust him. Submit." Maya fed every whisper to the silver flame. The influence burned away. "Do you know the most pathetic part?" she asked. Her power strengthened with every word. "I started believing you." Pain sharpened her voice. "I thought someone had finally seen beyond the exile, beyond the danger, beyond the blood I carry in my memories." The fire spread across the ceiling. "I believed there might be one person capable of loving me for who I am instead of what I can do." "Maya, calm yourself." Concern entered Cale's voice now. Concern for her. Concern for himself. "Your energy is becoming unstable. You could collapse the mountain." "Good." The word carried a second voice beneath it, and the stone trembled. "Perhaps the world should learn what happens when it tries to cage silver flame." Maya lifted one hand. Power broke from her like a tidal wave. This was not the controlled warmth she used to heal. It was raw force spilled from 3 years of exile, accusation, loneliness, and buried rage. The cave vanished beneath blinding silver light. Through it, Maya saw Cale Schiff. His body expanded into the massive direwolf. Ancient, powerful, terrifying. Yet even he seemed small before the fury she had finally released. "You wanted to know what I am." Maya's voice shook the mountain. "I am not your weapon." She stepped forward. Silver fire rose from the stone beneath her feet. "I am not your tool." Another step. "I am not your sacrifice." Her eyes blazed. "I am Maya Karen, heir to a bloodline that burned before your ancestors learned to walk upright." The cavern groaned around them. "I am the silver flame. the bridge between worlds, the one who stands where destiny meets choice. Kale's wolf backed toward the entrance. There was nowhere to flee. Maya's power occupied every space, turning the air itself into liquid fire. You believed you could own me. Her smile became something terrible and beautiful as star at the instant before it destroyed itself. Silver flame opened behind her in the shape of enormous wings. The power lifted her from the ground. Light surrounded her so fiercely that even Kale turned his face away. She gathered enough force to reduce him to ash. Enough to break the mountain above them. Then another presence entered the cave. The flame flickered. Not yet, daughter. Not like this. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It carried the weight of creation, the age of prophecies written before language. Figures appeared within the light. Women and men formed from silver mist, and stars stood around Maya as though they had always been there. The first ones. The original silver flame healers who had walked between worlds when the barriers were young. Your anger is justified, the ancient voice said. The figure at the center stepped forward. She was a woman whose face mirrored Maya's, aged by immeasurable wisdom. But this is not the hour of your final choice. Greater darkness approaches. He will kneel before you soon enough. But first, you must decide whether to save the world that rejected you. Maya's flame pulsed with her heartbeat. Through the opening created by her power, she sensed something vast stirring far away. Not the shadow walkers from the grove. Something older, hungrier. Its voice carried promises of emptiness and endings. The barriers weaken. The ancestral woman said, the ancient seals are failing. Soon the choice will stand before you. Become the guardian, or allow everything to burn. Maya looked down at Kale. The direwolf king crouched beneath her light, powerless before the woman he had attempted to enslave. Her rage did not disappear. It hardened into something colder than iron. This is not finished, she told him. Her voice crossed more than the cavern. It echoed through dimensions. When the true battle arrives, when you need someone to stand between your world and the darkness, you will come to me on your knees. Silver light wrapped around her like a cloak woven from stars. And then we will discover who truly controls whom. Maya stepped toward the solid cavern wall. The stone became mist around her body. She passed through and vanished. Kale remained alone among the ashes of his plan, knowing he had unleashed something far more powerful than anything he had intended to control. Far beyond the mountain, the edges of reality began to tear, and something hungry scratched against the wall between worlds. 3 days after Maya walked through stone and disappeared into legend, the world began to come apart. At first, the changes were subtle. Shadows moved when nobody watched them. Voices whispered in languages older than memory. People woke from dreams screaming words they did not understand. By the 3rd day, even the most skeptical packs could no longer deny that reality itself had shifted. The barriers were failing. Kale Blackthorn stood upon the battlements of his ancestral castle and watched smoke rise from a dozen settlements. Alpha King of the Northern Territories, heir to the direwolf bloodline, master manipulator, and fool. He knew with perfect clarity that he had made the greatest mistake of his long life. Your Majesty, Councillor Thorne approached with the careful movements of someone carrying disastrous news toward a dangerous predator. The reports from the eastern border have arrived. How many? Kale's voice sounded empty. He had felt little since Maya left. Not anger, not even regret in its ordinary form. Only a vast absence where something living had once existed. 17 settlements have fallen, Thorne said. The Shadow Walkers are stronger and more organized. They are no longer attacking at random. She hesitated. They are destroying every trace of silver flame blood they find. It appears they are searching for someone. They are searching for her, Cale thought. The creatures were not mindless. They were soldiers in a war older than the territories, and Maya was both the greatest danger to them and their chosen target. What are the other packs doing? Cale asked. Have they begun mobilizing? Thorn's silence answered. The northern territories were fracturing beneath ancient grudges and new terror. Half the packs blamed Maya, claiming the cursed healer had torn open the world. The others were too busy fleeing to assign blame. Silver Moon has issued a formal challenge, Thorn said at last. Alpha Silver Moon accuses you of protecting the fugitive responsible for the invasion. He demands Maya's execution and your abdication if you refuse to surrender her. Cale nearly laughed. Surrender her? As though he knew where she had gone. As though he possessed any power over her at all. And if I found her, he murmured. What then? Thorn watched him carefully. Would I command her to repair a wound she did not create? Would I ask her to save a world that spent 3 years trying to murder her? Your Majesty. But Cale no longer spoke to his counselor. He saw silver fire filling the cave. He saw the moment Maya learned the truth. He heard her speak her own name like a declaration of war. I am Maya Karen. He had tried to reduce her to an instrument. Instead, he had awakened something magnificent and terrifying, something capable of saving the world or watching it die with equal power. Which would she choose? Hooves thundered in the courtyard below. Riders shouted as they arrived at full speed. Cale looked down and saw a scout from the Southern Territories collapse from a horse white with exhaustion. Your Majesty, the scout shouted. An emergency dispatch from Ironwood. Minutes later, the man stood before Cale's throne, covered in dust and shaking from fear or fatigue. Ironwood has fallen, he said. The entire pack. 200 wolves killed in a single night. He swallowed. But that is not the strangest part. Continue. Before the Shadow Walkers breached their final defences, every Ironwood oracle received the same vision. They spoke one message together with their final breaths. The scout produced a sheet of parchment shimmering with residual magic. When Cale took it, words appeared across the surface in liquid starlight. The silver flame walks between worlds. Seeking the heart of shadow, she who was rejected stands now. At the crossroads of salvation and vengeance, the choice approaches. Will she become guardian or executioner? Will love rise above betrayal? All things rest upon a question, for which no answer has yet been given. Will she choose the world that cast her out, or will she allow it to burn for its sins? Time grows short. The first darkness stirs. She cannot face it alone. But when the final hour arrives, will anyone stand beside her? The words vanished when Cale finished reading. Only blank parchment remained. He closed his eyes and saw Maya as she had been on their final night, radiant, wounded, and utterly his. Or so he had believed. Now he understood she had never belonged to anyone's claim. She was silver flame given flesh, the bridge between worlds, the power that would determine whether reality survived. And he had tried to enslave her. What kind of man does that make me? What kind of king attempts to imprison the only force his people need to survive? Guilt threatened to drown him. Yet beneath it, his mind began working again, not to control her, but to find a path toward her. Somewhere beyond the known world, Maya faced an enemy that had consumed entire realities in forgotten ages. She was walking into that war alone because everyone who should have protected her had chosen fear instead. Would you have chosen her? The oracle's message had asked the question without speaking it. Or would you have feared her too? The truth burned through Cale. He had feared her, not her power. He had feared what loving her would demand from him. He had been so terrified of vulnerability and losing control that he convinced himself manipulation was safer than trust. Now control had become an illusion. Safety had become a lie. Reality itself was breaking. "Your Majesty," Councillor Thorne said quietly, "what are your orders?" Cale looked beyond the castle windows toward the smoke rising from his kingdom. The world was about to learn the price of rejecting its only hope. "Call every pack still willing to answer the crown," he said. "Every warrior, every alpha, every wolf who can still fight." "To do what?" Thorne asked. Cale rose. For the first time in 3 days, purpose returned to his golden eyes. To find Maya Karen. His voice strengthened. To kneel before her and ask forgiveness. He descended from the throne. To stand beside her when the true enemy arrives. Then he looked toward the darkening sky. And to pray she possesses more mercy than any of us deserve. Thunder rolled across a cloudless horizon. Somewhere between worlds, silver flame burned against a darkness whispering of the end. And beneath the rolling thunder, a question seemed to travel upon the wind. When everything you know stands at the edge of destruction, when the only woman capable of saving it has every reason to let it burn, whose side will you choose? Will you stand beside the exiled healer carrying silver fire in her heart? Will you kneel before the woman your people once tried to destroy? Will you place your life in the hands of someone who has no reason to trust you? Because beneath the prophecies, kings, and ancient power, that was the true heart of the story. Could love survive betrayal? Could redemption exist when the cost had become almost impossible to pay? Maya Karen now walked between worlds with the survival of everyone resting upon shoulders that had already carried too much. And somewhere inside the widening darkness, an ancient hunger waited to learn whether the woman with silver flame in her blood would become salvation, or executioner. In the space between heartbeats, between one world and the next, Maya stood at the edge of everything. The realm she had entered after passing through the cavern wall was neither the spirit world nor the mortal one. It was the thin place where every possibility converged, where the barriers separating what existed from what might exist became delicate as silk. Here, silver flame did more than heal. It revealed truth, all of it. Beautiful, terrible, unavoidable, and the truth Maya discovered chilled her blood. The shadow walkers were not the real enemy. They were scouts, harbingers sent ahead by something so ancient and ravenous that even the first ones spoke of it in whispers. Through the mist of the between space, Maya saw a presence moving in the deepest darkness. It had waited since the beginning of time for the barriers to weaken enough to permit its return. The devourer of lights, her ancestral memories whispered. The thing that existed before creation. The hunger that desired to pull every world back into the emptiness from which existence had risen. Dimensional windows opened around Maya. Through one, she watched Cale mobilize his forces. Through another, Alpha Silver Moon gathered his hunters. Across the territories, packs prepared for a war they did not understand against an enemy they could not imagine. All of them searched for Maya. Some intended to worship her. Others intended to kill her. None understood that she already stood exactly where she was needed. At the heart of everything, holding the line between existence and oblivion. How long? Maya asked. Silver flame moved around her fingers as naturally as breath. Days, answered voices that sounded like her own, aged by countless centuries. Perhaps hours. Each shadow walker that crosses feeds upon the life of your world. Every feeding weakens the seals. When enough power has been consumed, the path will open. Maya closed her eyes. Every choice that had brought her here moved through her. Fessus's death, her exile, 3 years spent running, Cale's betrayal. All of it felt like preparation for the single moment, the hour, when she would decide whether the world that rejected her deserved to survive. I could let it burn. The thought held a dark sweetness. She could step aside and watch every pack that feared her crumble into ash. She could allow them to reap everything they had planted, but the silver flame inside her recoiled, because Maya was no longer only the rejected woman of Silver Moon. She was the bridge, the guardian standing where destiny divided, and guardians did not make their choices from personal vengeance. They chose what was right. A ripple moved through the between space. Maya turned. A figure approached through the mist. He was not one of the first ones. Yet she knew him immediately. Fessus. She breathed. He appeared as he had before the silver flame awakened the direwolf bloodline within him. Golden hair. Warm brown eyes. The easy smile that had captured Maya's heart when they were both too young to understand what love might cost. "Hello, Maya," he said. His voice carried the peace of someone who have finally found rest. "I have been waiting for you. You're dead." The words emerged without emotion. "I watched them fire silver through your heart. I am dead," Fessus agreed. He sat beside her upon something resembling a cliff suspended above an ocean of unborn possibilities. But death is not always an ending for those touched by silver flame. I have remained here, learning what madness prevented me from understanding while I lived. Maya stared at the ghost of her first love, the reminder of the failure that had shaped every year since. "Why are you here?" "To say what I should have told you before the direwolf bloodlust consumed me." Fessus reached toward her face. His fingers passed through her like mist. "You did not destroy me, Maya." His brown eyes held hers. "You saved me." "The creature you became killed 16 innocent wolves. The direwolf killed them," Fessus said gently. "By then, the person I had been was already lost inside instincts I did not understand and had never been trained to control." Pain moved through his expression. "But you tried to heal me. You tried to make me whole." His smile was unbearably tender. "That was not destruction, Maya. It was love." Tears fell before Maya realized she was crying. Each drop turned to liquid silver before touching the ground of the between space. "I have spent 3 years believing I was cursed." "No," Fessus said. "You spent 3 years learning how to survive a power capable of reshaping reality." He looked toward the dimensional windows. "Every lonely night, every rejection, every mile you travelled while hiding, all of it prepared you for this choice. Beyond them, shadow walkers gathered along the borders of the mortal world. The devourer shifted inside the distant dark. Soon the final seal would break. Then the thing that had consumed realities in forgotten ages would be free. I don't know whether I am strong enough," Maya admitted. Fessus smiled. For an instant, he looked solid enough to touch. "You have been strong enough since the day silver flame first entered your blood." His voice softened. "The question is not whether you can stop what is coming." He looked directly into her eyes. "The question is whether you can forgive the world that wounded you enough to try." Before Maya could answer, another presence entered the between space. Power and remorse moved through the mist in equal measure. Her heart tightened as she recognized the psychic signature. Cale appeared before her, but not as the king she remembered. The arrogance was gone. The certainty had vanished. For the first time, the direwolf king looked humbled. The moment he saw Maya, he dropped to one knee. "Maya," he said. His voice carried the weight of a collapsing kingdom. "I came to... You came to beg." She finished. Her voice was colder than the distance between stars. "The world is ending, so you have returned for the weapon you tried to create." "No." Cale lifted his face. Maya saw tears inside his golden eyes. "I came to tell you I was wrong." His breath shook. "I came to tell you I'm sorry. If the world ends because of my cowardice and arrogance, then I deserve every moment of whatever waits afterward." Maya studied him. This was the king who had planned to steal her freedom. The man who intended to erase her identity and leave behind an obedient vessel. Now he appeared hollow, as though he had finally understood what he had destroyed. "Beautiful words," Maya said, "but words are all you have ever offered me. Pain sharpened each syllable. Lies wrapped in a silver tongue. Promises designed to become chains. I know." Cale's voice cracked. "I know I deserve neither forgiveness nor another chance." He remained on his knee. "But I am not here for myself." He gestured toward the windows showing the mortal realm. "I am here for every innocent life about to end because I was too frightened to love you as you deserved." Reality shuddered. Another ancient seal split. The shadow walkers howled in triumph. Maya felt the devourer turn toward the wounded barrier like a predator tasting blood in water. Vessus rose. His body began dissolving into silver mist. "The choice belongs to you, Maya," he said. "It always has." His voice faded with him. "But remember, you are not choosing only for yourself. You choose for everyone who will come after." Then he was gone. Maya stood alone with the man who had broken her heart and the decision that would echo across eternity. Cale remained kneeling, his head bowed, waiting for judgment from the woman he had once tried to enslave. In the deepest darkness, something immense began to laugh. The final seal cracked. Reality held its breath, and Maya carrying the silver flame, the bridge between worlds, prepared to make the choice that would determine whether existence survived the coming storm. But that choice belonged to another chapter. Some stories are too vast to remain inside a single telling. Some demand to continue. They burn into the soul and refuse to release it. The devourer of lights stirs within its prison of dying reality. Cale Blackthorn kneels before the woman he betrayed, awaiting forgiveness or annihilation, and Maya Karen stands at the crossroads of everything, silver fire dancing around her hands, about to discover that saving the world may only be the beginning. The true Alpha has not yet risen. The real battle is still ahead, and the woman who was once ignored, once broken, once lost, is about to become a legend. This is not over.